5 years ago, two senior insurance executives with international careers in the industry joined forces in Auckland to form their own company. Delta Insurance was born, with offices in Auckland and Singapore. So why did Delta's founders leave two of the largest multinational insurance corporations to start their own company? And what fresh ideas does Delta bring to the industry? Co-founders Ian Pollard and Craig Kirk are with me now. Thanks very much for joining us, gentlemen. Now, insurance seems an unlikely industry for startups. So were you, like many other entrepreneurs, trying to fix a problem?
Yeah, look, I think certainly from my point of view, having worked for large, corporates for all my career, really, there was definitely a little bit of sort of jaundicedness, I suppose, in terms of what they were bringing to the market. We kind of felt that most of the large players were becoming a bit disconnected. They were lacking innovation, service was taking a backward step, and we felt that was, those factors and a bunch of others, we felt we could bring those to the market and inject a bit of dynamism and innovation to the market.
I want to talk about the sector in a moment and the fresh ideas you brought. But first of all, as far as your own company goes, we've got Craig, your CEO, Ian, your managing director and chairman. So how did you divvy out the lead roles, and who's the boss?
Well, things have changed recently, so that you're absolutely bang on with the structure there. So I guess it truly is a partnership. But at one point we were kind of both doing the same things up until, I guess, the international business started to thrive, until we started a new line of business here in New Zealand in property insurance. So I guess we were kind of doing the same things, and we both bring different strengths to the table. But then just probably before the end of last year, we had a sit down and chat, and it was actually Craig said, look, why doesn't he focus on the flagship business, which is New Zealand, which is the growth engine for the business, and I focus, and I was kind of spending more and more time on the international stuff in Singapore and further afield, start focusing on that. So Craig assumed the role of CEO for the New Zealand business, and I took a sort of group managing director.
Sort of makes sense then, doesn't it? What's the ownership structure?
So it's fully New Zealand owned. So between Ian and I, we've got the largest share of the business. We've also got another shareholder, which is a company called Chillaxing, run by a gentleman called Ryan Eager.
And what do they bring to the table?
So they were investors, effectively. So there's a sort of history there with Ryan. I'd worked with him previously. He's got an insurance background. There's another gentleman involved called Michael Perrott, who was one of the founders of HRV in New Zealand. And I guess when we started to formulate our plans, we quickly worked out that we needed a bit of capital to support us. And we got talking to them quite early on, and frankly, they've been a massive, fantastic partner of ours right from the word go.
Exactly. The value that they bring to Delta has been way more than the initial investment. So they've been a fantastic sounding board, both here and for expansion plans internationally. And to be honest, the value that they brought has, to this stage, and this is something we're looking at, has probably meant that we haven't really needed any more directors at this stage, but it's something that we're looking to, as we grow, add more directors. But the experience that they've got, not just in the insurance sector, but broader, running large businesses that are looking to go overseas, has been fantastic. So that's been really valuable.
Have you had to tweak your business model much as you've gone? You make your early mistakes, or have things been pretty much as you've?
I'd say yes. Probably the biggest one. Probably about 3 years ago, I used to say, we're not going to get into property insurance. We're now doing property insurance. So that was a consequence of somebody coming to us with a business plan, a well-known guy in the market, Andrew Beaton, who came to us, and brilliant business plan, and we understood the property sector a lot more and the risks that challenge that sort of brings to us. That was the first one. The second one, I guess, when we started looking at Singapore as well, it was in the business plan, the original business plan, but I think we didn't expect to be getting into it as soon as we got into Singapore. So that brought with it challenges, time, investment, cash flow, everything else that we probably were expecting probably at year 4 or 5, probably now, but that we started this sort of Singapore expedition in year 3. So we had to tweak things around a bit, and also at the very start. As a bit of contraction in the insurance market, we both sort of made a decision that we would hire more staff and push forward with our growth plans earlier in New Zealand. which kind of paid off.
Yeah.
What do the big players think of this little startup in New Zealand coming on, particularly IAG, who obviously you both worked with?
They probably see us as upstarts. They've tried their best to, block us at times.
A bit of fun and games.
Bit of fun and games, but also, a lot of the larger insurers. We've got friends there who we've worked with at different points, whether they've been on the broking side or we've worked with them as colleagues at the insurance businesses. And I think, some of them are, quietly and secretly are rooting for us. So I don't think it's all kind of negativity from their side.
Yeah.
I think we're also helping the industry raise the bar a little bit. So some of the stuff we do around risk awareness, we've done some great stuff in the cyber insurance space, the environmental insurance space, technology risk insurance, quite new risk areas for the industry that we've probably raised the bar a little bit in those spaces, and they've come along for that ride as well. I think it's fair to say
that we're kind of growing the markets whilst we compete with all the large players in the market. Some of those products which Ian just mentioned are entirely new products, or they were to the market when we launched them. So I guess we've helped, coming back to that point on innovation, we've helped provide better customer outcomes and grow the market rather than just go in and compete with them on price, for example.
Yeah, so it's being clever. It's looking for new opportunities.
Yeah.
You mentioned the property sector, which of course is forever in the news. Let's look at the way that IAG handled the changing view of the Wellington residential property market. What did you think of their approach to make it harder for maybe new buyers to get insurance in the Wellington market?
Well, that's actually quite an interesting point, because at the moment I think the whole insurance market is facing quite a lot of contraction of capacity in the global insurance market. So whilst we're not in the residential space, I'll probably put that out there, we're only in the commercial insurance space. So but certainly there are challenges at the moment with regards to global capacity for property insurance, whether it's residential or commercial, and that's at Lloyd's, that's the Munich Re's and Swiss Re's of this world, the big large reinsurers. There is a big focus on property insurance globally. I don't think it's just a New Zealand thing. I think there's a lot of large natural disasters now. It's the norm. A lot of climate type events. A lot of droughts.
And I think what we're seeing in New Zealand is a knock-on effect of what's happening globally. So it's not just a New Zealand phenomenon.
Yeah, but having said that, the challenges here are far more real than an awful lot of places in the world. We're a small country, but we're extremely earthquake-prone, tsunamis, volcanoes, flooding, the rest of it. So how much of a challenge is that for New Zealand?
I think it's both a challenge, but it's for us. It's also I guess opportunity is the wrong word, but I think New Zealand is a very risk aware. So if you look at New Zealand in the global scheme of things, New Zealand is always one of the highest places in the world that buys insurance or risk transfers. The great thing about that is that when we when we're looking at sort of new risk exposures that businesses are facing that are in the, and I'll do a sort of compare and contrast here with Singapore. Here in New Zealand, the earthquakes, there are natural disasters, the horrendous sort of climatic type events, flooding and what have you. New Zealand, in Singapore, it's fairly stable. There's very few things go wrong there. So when we're talking to our brokers, or we're talking to an insured of ours and say, look, you've got a problem potentially in the future with cyber risk. I'll take that as an example. It's here, it's now, people are getting ransomware, etc., people are getting hacked. A lot of insureds in Asia, for example, will go, no, that's not going to happen to us, because they don't have that sort of, I guess, macro environment of things going wrong. But here there are things that go wrong. So I'd say that for us, I guess it's an opportunity, because the insureds that we talk to actually understand risk. It's a very well insured place. And I think it's actually helped us and others grow the insurance market here as a good response to proper risk that businesses face, rather than just relying on the government or, as they do in places such as Asia, or just not buying insurance and running the risk and having horrendous issues as a result of things going wrong.
What about? You mentioned the fact you're not in residential property. It's not a sector you'd ever expand into in the future, Craig?
No, certainly no immediate plans.
What about the future, though? I mean, you've obviously got ambitions still to grow. And what sort of markets would you like to expand into?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are a very ambitious company. So our kind of motto that we're working to is 10 countries in 10 years. So we're definitely very focused on overseas expansion. I guess Singapore was our first foray into overseas market.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that for us is really a stepping stone into broader Asian markets. So we're already doing some business in the likes of Hong Kong, Taiwan, Thailand and places like that. So we definitely see that very much on the cards. The other thing as well is I think our model is quite scalable, not only internationally but also into other product areas as well. So I certainly wouldn't rule out moving into other lines of business. I think it's probably unlikely that we'd move into the personal general line space anytime soon. Our background and DNA is very much commercial. So we'll stick to that for the time being.
Craig, Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Rawdon. Cheers.
Thanks, Rawdon.